Tonight, in the midst of a record-breaking season, new research is shedding light on the deadly health impacts of wildfires.
When the air pollution increases, there's increased risk of mortality from heart and lung diseases.
What we're learning about the dangers from the fires in the short term and beyond. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announces deep cuts to new vaccine research in the U.S.
It's dangerous what they've done because the mRNA technology has been proven to be highly effective.
The troubling implications for Canada and the world. A team tennis sensation and the remarkable run that keeps on rolling. Canadian Victoria Mboko books her ticket to the finals.
From CBC News, this is The National with Heather Hiscox.
Thanks for joining us. Adrian is away. Many Canadians remain on edge tonight after evacuation orders or air quality alerts from wildfires. We already know all that smoke and debris comes with serious health risks. But now, new research suggests disasters like these could be far deadlier than initially thought. It's looking at the health impacts of the Los Angeles wildfires, which tore a path of destruction through neighborhoods earlier this year. Those fires may be indirectly linked to hundreds more deaths. Allison Northcott brings us the findings and the new health warnings.
The wildfires in Los Angeles earlier this year were intense and devastating. By official counts, 30 people died, but new research suggests that toll may be much higher.
We estimated an excess mortality toll of 440 deaths, far above the official estimate. Our excess mortality estimate also includes those deaths that were indirectly related to the wildfires.
The research letter in the Journal of the American Medical Association points to several likely factors, including increased exposure to poor air quality and healthcare delays and interruptions. Experts say it's the latest in a growing body of research looking at how extreme weather events affect our health during a disaster and after.
As long as we continue to think about the impact of climate as being episodic, as being this event, that event, and that's the health impact, we're really going to be at a disadvantage.
Many parts of Canada have been dealing with wildfires again this summer and the smoky air that comes with it.
Big breath in and out. Good.
Respiratory therapists say patients can feel it.
They're scared to go outside. They don't know what's going to happen if they go outside. They can't breathe. They feel like they're having difficulties to breathe, that their lungs are on fire.
The LA fires burned a large urban area with the destruction of buildings and other materials like metals and plastics. In Canada, smoke from forest fires also brings health risks.
When the air pollution increases, there's increased risk of mortality from heart and lung diseases. And I think we maybe haven't done a full accounting of what the impacts are likely to be, going forward.
And Heather, researchers are studying those long-term impacts now of being exposed to wildfire smoke year after year.
And we just saw, Allison, how clearly many Canadians can't escape the smoke this summer.
Yes, and we heard from health officials in Newfoundland and Labrador this week who are urging people there who are vulnerable to take steps to protect themselves when the air quality is bad by staying indoors with the windows closed if possible. And experts say with climate change, people and healthcare systems really need to prepare for and adapt to these kinds of risks.
Allison, thank you. Allison Northcott is in Montreal. Helping fuel wildfires are the dry conditions across much of the country. Some areas are experiencing an outright drought. Lisa Shing shows us the situation farmers are facing after days of little or no rain.
They've stopped flowering, they're no longer really producing, and they're just starting to burn up.
They're usually a robust crop, but Dan Christolitis has only harvested a third of the beans he usually does.
We're going to see a decrease in yield and lower revenue into the fall.
There are drier than normal conditions in some places across the country. Large areas in Western Canada experiencing what Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada calls moderate or severe drought. More recently, Eastern Canada also abnormally dry. Many places getting roughly half of the rain that's expected.
Everybody is in the deficit situation with regards to moisture. But what's making it particularly worse is the fact that it's been so hot. When it is hot, you need more precipitation, not less, to balance things out.
These conditions prompting Nova Scotia to ban hiking, camping, fishing in wooded areas, an attempt to stop what happened 2 years ago when wildfires destroyed more than 200 homes.
These restrictions mean that some people will need to change their plans and routines. But when compared to the damage that we saw in 2023, it's not a risk to take.
Newfoundland battling 3 out-of-control fires that have forced hundreds to evacuate their communities.
Now the island is a tinderbox, so please just think about the consequences of your actions if you're thinking about having a bonfire.
Experts say these conditions could become the norm, and that will change our environment.
Some of these fires are so hot that they literally leave scorched earth behind them where nothing survives, no seeds can grow, and we can see a completely different shift to another type of ecosystem.
That will take a toll on the economy, and farmers like Crystallitis will have to adapt. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Breaking tonight, Victoria Mboko has done it again. She's upset a much higher seed and now advances to the finals of the National Bank Open in Montreal. Sarah Levitt now with the 18-year-old's incredible rise to stardom as she chases a title on home soil.
She has done it again. The Canadian Queen of the Court now on to her first ever major final in the big leagues. That after what has been a remarkable stretch for Toronto's Victoria Mboko. Entering the day, she was already the youngest Canadian ever to make it to a semi-final in tennis's open era, which began in the 1960s. The 18-year-old came into Montreal's National Bank Open relatively unknown, but her smashing success has won over the crowd. And it's not just Canadian fans, but also international media. The Athletic, Sky Sports, and others all have Who is Mboko stories up on their sites. The buzz picking up after her win against the tournament's #1 seed, Coco Gauff. The tournament's director among those taking note.
Just a couple months ago, she was probably the one still talking about who her role models were, and now all of a sudden, well, she's becoming the idol of the young players.
Mboko's success on the court is encouragement for others looking to break through, including 16-year-old Canadian Lily Rochon, who just won the under-18 national title in July.
I think it's great to see Vicky Mboko doing so well, like another Canadian. It's super inspirational for a lot of young girls like me, the next generation, to see her doing so well. Yeah, it's super inspiring.
And it's not just about inspiration, it ensures continuity of talent for Tennis Canada.
We have those players from here who train here, who are able to win at the highest level. Obviously, the goal is to make sure that, we can keep it up.
Mboko has earned a spot in the main draw of the U.S. Open, but first it's back again tomorrow night for the final right here.
Sarah, you got to experience Mboko Mania for yourself inside that stadium. How does tonight's win stack up?
It was absolutely electric in there. Several times it looked like the match might be in doubt, but Mboko kept coming back, and eventually she won it, making the crowd go home happy here tonight.
For sure. Epic match. Thank you, Sarah Levitt, in Montreal tonight. The fashion accessory store Claire's says it will soon seek bankruptcy protection in Canada. The retail chain has already taken that step in the U.S., but stores in both countries will remain open as the company tries to adapt to the trend toward online shopping. Claire's has more than 100 outlets in Canada and more than 2,700 worldwide. Prime Minister Mark Carney has been meeting with his cabinet and with provincial premiers today, with the U.S. tariffs at the top of the agenda. As the trade war continues, we're learning more tonight about how Canadians have shifted their travel plans away from the United States. Julia Wong maps out which countries are benefiting the most.
When was your last trip to the United States?
It would have been last year's summer.
Trips to the United States used to be common for Kelly Bergquist, but the ongoing trade war made her reconsider.
I just don't really want to support them right now. If they're going to do that to us, I don't want to give any money to them.
Now she's planning a big trip next year to the Balkan countries in southeastern Europe.
I could have easily done a Mississippi River cruise. As of right now, I'm just putting all that aside until we kind of see where things are going.
Data shared by Flight Centre Canada shows Canadians are choosing other international destinations. From May to July, Buenos Aires, Osaka, Copenhagen, and Curacao saw a more than 100% increase in travel spending by Canadians compared to last year. Aruba and Lisbon have also seen a more than 60% increase. Many things can influence the change, but this manager says tensions with the U.S. are top of mind for clients.
People are still traveling at the same rate they were. They're just choosing different destinations. So that tourism money that would have been going there is 100%. It's going to other places.
This resort chain in Mexico says about 15,000 more Canadians booked this year compared to 2024. The Canadian-owned company is doubling down.
We have digital campaigns in 20 different cities in Canada at the moment.
So how coveted are Canadian travelers right now?
It's a market that we love, that we care for, that we've been working with for many, many years.
Those feelings are important for travelers, says this expert.
What we're seeing at this point is that Canadians want to go to places where they feel like they're welcome and they're going to be safe.
Right now, for some, that isn't the U.S. And until that changes, many plan to spend their travel dollars elsewhere. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
In Quebec tonight, officials are investigating a helicopter crash. It happened at the small airport in the town of Alma, about 200 kilometers north of Quebec City, at the end of a runway. The local fire department says there were injuries, but no deaths. Research scientists and medical professionals are coming to grips tonight with the setbacks that will hit vaccine research after a massive funding cut in the U.S. announced by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Anis Haydari shows us why experts are rejecting the government's rationale for the cuts.
$500 million is being cut from research into next-generation vaccines as the leader of the U.S. Department of Health cancels funding for mRNA development and insists the vaccine technology made popular during COVID poses risks.
We're prioritizing the development of safer, broader vaccine strategies, like whole virus vaccines and novel platforms that don't collapse when viruses mutate.
They withstood mutations extremely well.
Medical experts say the U.S. government's explanation is not true.
It's dangerous what they've done because the mRNA technology has been proven to be highly effective. By some estimates, 3.2 million American lives were saved by COVID mRNA vaccines during the pandemic.
Losing funding for future research could mean losing future treatments, and not just for COVID.
The mRNA technology is looking really exciting for next generation cancer immunotherapeutics. So will this throw cold water on a whole big effort that we're pursuing as well to develop next generation cancer vaccines?
And researchers in Canada point out the alternative vaccines U.S. politicians are prioritizing aren't a substitute.
This is such ancient vaccine technology that it was literally developed by Jonas Salk. So it's not that these vaccines don't work, they do, but they don't work as well as mRNA vaccines.
While Canadians may not be affected immediately, this funding gap will be felt by researchers in the long run.
The overall portfolio of research that was funded by the US government is not something that any country can duplicate.
Researchers say that mRNA allowed faster development of vaccines than ever. With $500 million in funding gone, some fear it will slow back down. Anis Haidari, CBC News, Calgary.
Later in the hour, I'll be joined by an infectious diseases specialist and a scientific researcher to discuss how the cuts may affect the international research community and what it could all mean for Canada in terms of both challenges and opportunities. Democratic state legislators from Texas had to evacuate a Chicago hotel today after a bomb threat. Police searched the hotel but did not find any explosives. The legislators left Texas to try to block a new gerrymandered congressional map that would add seats for Republicans and potentially give them an advantage in next year's midterm elections. The governor of Illinois said the threat targeted the legislators but did not elaborate. A White House official says President Trump will soon meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in person as Trump tries to broker an end to the Russia-Ukraine war. The White House also says Trump is open to a meeting with both Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, met Putin in Moscow today ahead of Friday's deadline for a ceasefire deal. The U.S. is threatening economic penalties against Russia if the war continues. A new report tonight is putting hard numbers on the rising incidence of Islamophobia and anti-Palestinian racism in this country. Rafi Boudjikanian has the details and the calls for change and for action from the federal government.
Since October 2023, Muslims in Canada say the hate has only gotten worse.
We've seen a culture of swift demonization.
Nadia Hassan's new report documents dozens of Islamophobic and anti-Palestinian incidents in the last 2 years.
What is deeply painful for many of the people that we consulted for this report is the erasure of the horrific realities of Palestinians in Gaza and the silencing of those who seek to exercise their most basic democratic rights.
Some say they felt that firsthand. This man protesting the war in Gaza does not want to reveal his name. He says he's been a target of campaigns the report warns about.
We were at the mall, and I have a little sticker in the back of my car that says, Free Palestine, with a little kufiye, and it was reported online with my license plate number.
The report has recommendations for decision makers. It says all levels of government in Canada should recognize and adopt a definition of anti-Palestinian racism and recognize May 15 as Nakba Day. For Palestinians, the date commemorates the exile of hundreds of thousands of their own from Israel in 1948.
The affirmation of Palestinian identity and culture is a critical component, I think, of addressing the issues.
Israel contests the assertion that Palestinians were driven out and marks its Independence Day the day before Nakba. Asked what it thinks of the recommendations, the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs told CBC News in a statement it urges Ottawa to increase support for security of vulnerable community institutions and criminalize the glorification of terrorism. The federal government has not responded to our questions about the report's recommendations, but the woman they appointed to combat Islamophobia says she will be in discussions with them. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
American actress Kelly Mack has died at the age of just 33.
Well, you're Addie, right?
Addie, with a D, short for Adeline.
Mack is best known for her role as Addie on the 9th season of The Walking Dead. She died from glioma, a type of tumor that affects the brain or spinal cord. A statement on social media says Mack died peacefully on Saturday in her hometown of Cincinnati. Rescuers are rushing to search for the missing after devastating flash floods in northern India. Why this village was particularly vulnerable. Marking 80 years since the U.S. dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima.
The entire human race is on the brink.
The warning from survivors. And a young fan makes it on stage with Shaboozy.
I had no clue I'd get that far and I'd be that successful.
We're back in 2. Fountains of lava shooting into the air as this volcano in Hawaii erupted this morning. The Kīlauea volcano was one of the world's most active. This is the 30th time it's erupted in less than a year. In India tonight, devastating flash floods have left at least 4 people dead and more than 100 missing. Mud and water suddenly surged through villages, sweeping away homes and leaving people trapped under the debris. Sasha Petrusik now on the desperate search for survivors.
Water is a powerful force in India's Himalayas, but rarely so overwhelming. A wall of it crashing through villages this week.
This is the location of the mudslide at the Dharali village.
Mudslides leaving nothing but rooftops. Locals describe a cloudburst. 10 centimeters of rain falling in an hour. It was terrifying, says Sumit Rathodi. People didn't even have time to run. The rescue continues unabated, says the state chief of Uttarakhand province. But it's so hard to get there. More than 100 people are missing as rescuers struggle to get past broken roads and washed out bridges. India is in the middle of monsoon season, with this mountainous corner near Nepal facing extra challenges. Hot, moist air rising, cooling, then falling when it hits the towering Himalayas. Raining ever harder, say experts, as climate change takes hold.
You're going to have more and more severe floods, flash floods, severe weather, more downpour of heavy rainfall, and I don't think India is prepared for that.
For years, environmental groups have warned of deforestation making landslides more deadly here, of dams altering the course of rivers unpredictably. Government, they say, has ignored the risks. Now the situation is dangerous and very horrifying, he says. And it could get even worse, as more rain is in the forecast. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Toronto.
Remembrance and a reminder of the horrors of nuclear war 80 years after the U.S. dropped the first atomic bomb.
We stand now at the edge of a new and unstable nuclear age.
The message from a survivor of Hiroshima. Why the whole world could pay for U.S. cuts to vaccine development.
This is a really short-sighted decision that is for sure going to cost us lives.
Our panel on the potential risks. And a Cold War-era agreement on Antarctica now under threat.
We need to do something to preserve this.
The National breaks down the story shaping our world next.
Oh my God!
A close call in Anchorage, Alaska. A landing plane overshot the runway, burst through a fence, and crossed a busy roadway, narrowly missing passing vehicles. None of the 7 passengers nor the pilot were injured. The U.S. National Transportation Safety Board is investigating. The world is marking a solemn anniversary today. 80 years since U.S. forces dropped an atomic bomb on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. Survivors and their families commemorated the day with quiet ceremonies. Chris Reyes tonight looks at how the calls today for nuclear disarmament are being overshadowed by renewed nuclear threats.
A city still grieving the horrors of nuclear war 80 years later. Together, Hiroshima marked the exact minute the atomic bomb was dropped, unleashing a destruction never before seen. More than 130,000 people were killed, more than 60,000 instantly. Devastating injuries still linger. We must not repeat the tragedy, says the Japanese Prime Minister.
The bomb was exploded.
And a grave warning from a survivor of Nagasaki, where a second bomb was dropped 3 days after Hiroshima.
The entire human race is on the brink of nuclear war.
At this gathering, renewed calls for a world free of nuclear weapons.
We really want countries to uphold their commitment to stop stockpiling nuclear weapons and to sign up to the Global Ban Treaty.
The message of Hiroshima comes at a time of conflict and tensions between nuclear powers. The question, how to prevent further escalation.
How do we make sure that additional states don't see nuclear weapons as the only way to ensure their security? But I think that also needs to be balanced against the reality of the threats.
In recent weeks, Russia and the U.S., the world's two biggest nuclear powers, have exchanged veiled threats over the use of nuclear weapons. Even with messages of peace everywhere in Hiroshima, this resident worries that Japan is surrounded by 3 nuclear-powered countries. Kozo Morien says, "I think it's necessary for us to strengthen our defense capabilities." On a day full of reminders of nuclear destruction, a world grapples with how to prevent another disaster. Chris Reyes, CBC News, London.
Time now to look deeper at the stories shaping our world, including a political chill at the world's southern pole.
Antarctica is now on the horizon.
Just like the shifting ice that covers it, geopolitical tensions are causing fractures in Antarctica's governance structure.
The Antarctic Treaty is under considerable stress and strain.
We'll take you to the frozen continent to examine what's at stake. But first,
HHS has determined that mRNA technology poses more risk than benefits for these respiratory viruses.
in the U.S., nearly $500 million worth of vaccine research contracts cut by the controversial health secretary. For a closer look at the impact of those cuts, I'm joined by Dr. Alison McGeer, who's an infectious diseases specialist, and Bradley Waters, Executive Vice President of Science and Research at Toronto's University Health Network. Welcome, both of you. Dr. McGeer, I'd like to begin with you, if we could. mRNA technology really captured the public attention during the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, but it's disappeared a bit from the headlines since then. So why don't we begin with an explainer? What is mRNA technology and what makes it different?
So what happens with mRNA technology is instead of, most of our vaccines are made with proteins. So you make a protein and you put it in the vaccine, and when you inject it, your immune system responds to that protein. mRNA takes it kind of a step backwards. So it takes the messenger RNA that encodes the protein, and you inject the messenger RNA, that gets into the cell. When it gets into the cell, messenger is the term for it, it tells the ribosomes in your cell to make protein, and they make the protein that corresponds to that mRNA. And then now you end up with a protein, which again stimulates your immune system, and you get a response to it that protects you against subsequent infections. So it, instead of delivering a vaccine to stimulate your immune system, it delivers the mRNA that causes your cells to make that protein.
Themselves.
And the advantage to it is that you can make it much more quickly than you can make a protein vaccine. It's easier to standardize. It has a whole lot of other flexibilities that, if you know it works, makes it a really sort of exciting addition to the usual protein technology that we use for vaccines.
And so there was such excitement, Professor, when it arrived and really got our attention at that time. Silver bullet was used colloquially to talk about that, not just for COVID-19, but for other diseases as well. And the researchers who were responsible for its early development, they won the Nobel in 2023 for their research. What do you see as its potential?
They did, and there was also really important technology contributed by Canadians. Peter Collis in Vancouver developed the liposome, which is the carrier of the mRNA. And as Alison said, the real excitement around this is that it serves as a platform technology that allows extremely rapid new development of new vaccines and a much faster path to the clinic in a safe delivery system. That same liposome that carries that mRNA can encode all different kinds of proteins to target many different types of infectious disease, and in fact can be used to treat other types of disease. It's being used to tackle cancer. It's being used to tackle autoimmune disease.
So hence the excitement. So then, Dr. McGeer, this quote from the HHS Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., to explain his decision behind these cuts. We reviewed the science, listened to the experts, and acted. Is there any scientific explanation to support the cuts to this research and funding?
Short answer, no.
No.
You know, I think if you've been listening to the news today from the United States, you will not have heard any vaccine experts, and I don't know any vaccine experts who say anything other than this is a really short-sighted decision that is for sure going to cost us lives and significant illness when the next pandemic comes, but also misses out on advantages for not just infectious diseases, but cancer and autoimmune disease, a whole range of things that we could do based on this platform.
So if the science isn't there, what is behind it in your view, and how concerned are you about it, Professor?
Well, certainly we're concerned. It's another cutback in the support of important science, and in this case, a very important technology that will enable new therapeutic development. The United States has been the envy of the world in terms of its support for new health technologies and new developments that will aid in the many diseases and the many concerns that we have in the general public. And the entire world has relied on the U.S. for that leadership role. And we're seeing them pull back that support in many areas of science. Today's another example. 22 projects, really important areas of health research that Americans rely on, but in fact, the entire world relies on.
So what are the consequences internationally, do you think?
They're global. The entire world benefits from that support that the United States has provided. And I think it's a bit of a wake-up call, and we've had several of them over the last number of months, that the rest of the world does need to do more. We have relied to a large extent on the United States for that development, and countries like Canada, infectious disease specialists like Allison, can pick up some of that slack. And that's what we would like to see is, this is super exciting technology. There's a big door that's opening up for countries like Canada and other countries around the world to do more and to participate more in this development.
Step into that void now. How do you see it, Dr. McGeer, in terms of maybe not just challenges for Canada, but potentially opportunities as well?
Well, I think, I want to go back for a minute, because I think the first thing we want to think about this is to remember for a moment just what the United States did for us during the COVID pandemic, right? Yes, lots of Canadians and people from around the world contributed to COVID vaccines and the advent of mRNA vaccines, but it was the Americans who, really did the end development and Operation Warp Speed that got us vaccines. And so at the same time as this is a devastating decision, we need to remember what they've done for us before, which was, truly amazing things. But yes, I do think we've been, all of us around the world, been to some extent riding on the American coattails. It's been easy. Lots of Canadians working, but lots of Canadians who've had American funding to work, right? So this is both a challenge for us to step up and fill in the gap, but for Canadian academics, it's a huge opportunity to be able to, do new things and exciting things moving forward.
And it's just for people like you to attract people here in terms of the recruiting to continue the work that's now been cut.
Exactly, that's exactly right. The world's talent has been attracted to the United States because of the investments they make in research and the opportunity they create to translate that research into new medicines. And when they pull back on that support, other places, can compete. And here in Toronto at UHN, we've launched a program called Canada Leads to attract 100 new early career researchers from around the world. And we really want to see Canada take another step towards an ambition, a higher ambition for being a global player in medical research and in the development and commercialization and the economic benefit that research creates for the country.
Yeah. Bradley Waters, Dr. McGeer, thank you both for being here tonight. I really appreciate your time and perspective.
Thank you, Heather.
Pleasure.
A treaty aimed at preserving Antarctica could be on shaky ground.
There's geopolitical desire to have influence on this huge part of the planet.
The political tensions driving the new concerns. Antarctica, a breathtaking ice-encrusted continent at the world's southern pole, governed by a treaty of nations forged at the height of the Cold War.
The Antarctic Treaty, first and foremost, is an arms control treaty.
But a shifting world order is now causing fractures in that treaty. CBC News international climate correspondent Susan Ormiston traveled to Antarctica aboard a Canadian Navy ship back in January. She explains what's at stake and how countries are angling for more control.
Antarctica is now on the horizon. For many, this will be a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Antarctica is like nowhere on Earth, at the southern end of the world, a land of extreme cold and ice. Countries have tried to lay claim, but no one owns it. Antarctic claims were frozen in time 65 years ago during the height of the Cold War. The Antarctic Treaty, signed by 12 countries initially, became the governing rules of the territory and is to this day.
The Antarctic Treaty, first and foremost, is an arms control treaty. It's incredibly important in the sense that it declared the Antarctic continent and surrounding ocean a nuclear weapons-free zone.
Back in 1959, the area around the South Pole, an area 1.5 times the US, was designated special. It meant that anything that happened in this area of 60 degrees south to the pole would be governed by this Treaty of Nations, and decisions had to be made by consensus. It's mainly worked, but there are tensions. Like the ice breaking up in Antarctica, the treaty is showing cracks.
The Antarctic Treaty is under considerable stress and strain, probably entering the worst period it's ever experienced.
Rising geopolitical conflicts amongst the warming effects of climate change on the frozen continent are testing the treaty.
There's geopolitical desire to have influence on this huge part of the planet. That's done not through projection of military power, but through establishing scientific outposts.
The treaty, now signed by 58 countries, including Canada, preserves this place for science and peace. That's it. Military activity outside of science is prohibited, and a later protocol banned mining exploration. Countries demonstrate their foothold here in Antarctica the only way they can, with research stations like Brazil's. There are about 80 stations and camps operated by 40 countries. The US has 3 year-round, one the biggest by far, and one right at the South Pole. Russia operates 5 permanent stations plus seasonal camps, and China just built its 3rd permanent station, Kunming, and operates 2 others in the Antarctic summer.
It is preparing itself, like Russia, to potentially claim, if it had to or thought it was advantageous to, make such a claim.
Officially, all the research stations are doing critical science work, but at the strategic southern pole, is science the only objective for some countries?
There are concerns about whether technologies are being used that are brought for science or also used for some other, say, military purposes. There's also a question about whether demilitarization will hold for the future. There are questions about whether the mining ban, will hold.
Last year, a Russian research ship reported vast reserves of oil, over 500 billion barrels, after surveying parts of the Antarctic Sea, raising questions about Russia's future loyalty to the mining ban. Canada signed on to the Antarctic Treaty in 1988, but it doesn't operate its own research station.
Canada's been pretty clear that we don't intend to establish our own Antarctic research station. By collaborating with other national Antarctic programs and using their facilities, it gives us a lot of flexibility in the science that we do.
Fits within the already broad and deep bilateral collaboration that we have with Chile.
Canada's on a mission of science diplomacy, a cornerstone of the treaty, in Punta Arena at a Chilean-Canadian symposium. The 2 countries signed an agreement to collaborate more on polar science.
Steer 332. Starboard 5.
Then the HMCS Margaret Brooke embarked on a first all-Canadian scientific expedition with the Navy to Antarctica. At its first stop, a delegation from the Navy and the science team went ashore in Admiralty Bay. The landing party was welcomed by Antarctica's most famous ambassadors. Before Commander Terry Scher and Chief Scientist Thomas James trekked up the slope to visit one of the newest research facilities, Brazil's Ferraz Station on King George Island.
Hi, so I'm Terry Scher, so I'm the captain of the Margaret Brooke that you've seen operate here the last 24 hours.
We have 24 projects in total.
After a fire destroyed the station in 2012, Brazil designed a new, modern, year-round facility for 75 scientists working in state-of-the-art labs.
When you came to Antarctica and you see how beautiful is this part of the world, the feeling is that, we need to do something to preserve this part. Our world is praised nowadays, okay? And I think that the Antarctic Treaty is a good example that it can work.
Canada is seen as a significant contributor to Antarctic science, but it wants a bigger voice in the treaty to elevate its status to voting member, a so-called consultative party.
The last 3 or 4 years, Canada's claim to be a consultative party has been blocked first and foremost by Russia. And the reason is Russia wants its ally, Belarus, to be made a consultative party alongside Canada.
Without Belarus, there's been no consensus.
Canada publishes more scientific work on the Antarctic than about 2/3 of the consultative parties. So, to my mind, bluntly put, it's an absolute travesty of justice that Canada is not a consultative party.
Other flashpoints are straining Antarctic politics. The commercial fishery for krill is expanding with huge new ships. Quotas are being challenged. China and Russia recently vetoed a new marine protected area.
What's happening now is that as the relationship with Russia has deteriorated so badly, and then throw into the mix China becoming a more assertive polar actor, it's becoming really hard to find consensus.
Antarctica is still remote, but increasingly not insulated from disputes outside the continent. In the near future, will peace and science, the backbone of the treaty, survive?
The Antarctic Treaty States held their annual meeting last month in Milan and once again failed to reach consensus on Canada's bid to achieve consultative party status. They'll meet again next spring in Hiroshima. Coming up, a 14-year-old joins Shaboozy on stage in front of tens of thousands of fans.
You see these videos online of people going up to sing with famous people, and then you're one of them.
How he crowd surfed his way into the spotlight in our moment. This is Tristan Kolbach, next to one of the hottest stars in country music, Shaboozy, on stage at the Osheaga Music Festival in Montreal. Here's the story. Tens of thousands providing the soundtrack, and Kolbach crowd surfed his way to the front and into our moment.
He played his main song, like the bar song, the first time. I didn't do it. Played it a second time, I still didn't do it. And then he played it one more time. And then I was like, okay, so it's now or never. So then everyone picked me up. A few of my friends basically carried me and helped support me all the way to Shaboozy.
We were kind of, breathing words of caution, be careful, have fun, be safe. He was just saying that, not to worry, all he wanted to do was make sure he tried crowd surfing. So I was in a separate, not helicopter parenting. All of a sudden, he was kind of, surfing all the way out to, the stage.
I had no clue I'd get that far and it'd be that successful. I carried all the way to the front in front of 65,000 people. You see these videos online of people going up to sing with famous people, and then you're one of them.
Of course Tristan loves that song, a bar song, Tipsy. Everybody does, my mother especially. Last year, it tied the record for the most weeks at #1 on Billboard's Hot 100. And incidentally, Shaboozy is going to be in Montreal again next Friday as part of the Lasso Montréal Country Music Festival. Thank you for joining us. You can watch anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app and subscribe to the National's YouTube channel. I'm Heather Hiscox. Good night.